Picture this. You get a puppy for Christmas when you're a kid. You two are inseparable. You know your dog wouldn't hurt a fly. Now, time flies, and now you're in your dream city about to get your dream job. But there's a big problem. You can't take your beloved friend with you because the area has local breed-specific legislation laws that prohibit the kind of dog you have. Now you have a decision to make. Either keep your buddy and risk having legal actions or financial fines given against you, or have to give up your pet to a local animal shelter. Which one would you do? Now, breed-specific legislations are laws and restrictions that restrict certain breeds of dogs. Most of these breeds include German Shepherds, Akitas, and American Pit Bull Terriers, American Staffordshire Terriers, or a mix of the sorts. Now today, I'll be telling you why breed-specific legislation is ineffective and why it's important for the public to be educated on these breeds to reduce the fear of these breeds. I believe that if the public is educated and owners are held more responsible, that we can do away with breed-specific legislation altogether. Now, before I continue on, before I end the speech, I should say, I have given you each a question that you are free to answer once I reach close to the end of my speech. So I'll answer them to the best of my abilities based upon my research. Now, dogs bite. We all know that, right? That's their way of protecting themselves. And they can protect themselves from whatever they feel necessary, regardless of if we know it or not. Now, a lot of these times, they can be avoided, but sometimes they can't. Now, if there's ever a dog bite situation, one thing that is huge in figuring out courses of action and afterwards is the breed. If the breed is considered under one of these breed-specific legislation laws, then the consequences for the owner or even the dog could be very harsh. That could mean fines for the owner, legal action on the owner, and as for the dog, that could be going to the local pound or, depending on how bad the situation is, euthanization. Now, breed-specific legislation also takes away a lot of important resources from communities that fall under those jurisdictions. They take up a lot of money, a lot of law enforcement, and a lot of infrastructure. John Dunham and Associates did a fiscal study to find out how much it will cost if the whole United States had breed-specific legislation laws. And that accounted for DNA testing, euthanization costs, and disposal costs for those euthanized dogs, along with many other things. That number came up to roughly $400 million just in the country alone. Now, in Prince George's County in Maryland, annually they spend $250,000 just enforcing breed-specific legislation. All of that money can go towards actual public safety issues, such as, education system, police reform, local infrastructure such as roads and schools. Now, people typically are afraid of these breeds, but they're afraid of these breeds because they don't know much about them. And I believe that if people learn about them, then they won't be as afraid. Therefore, they should spend more time at shelters. Now, my plan would be to impose less breed-specific laws, but more of owners owning up to their issues with their dogs. So, in my plan, there would be a statewide registry for dogs. And each owner, not necessarily household, because people move, each owner would have to register their dog. Each dog that they have. There would be certain stipulations for, married couples, but they must register their dogs, and they must, similarly to hunter's education, they have to have dog owners education so that they know how to properly handle their dog. Most of these would lean a little bit breed specific, but they would normally be general. Now, if they fail to, comply or register their dogs within the 6-month window of initial ownership, then there would be a couple of fines. There would be a little bit of fines. There would be a $100 fine if they don't register the dog at all in the 6 months. But that fine can be waived if you had set an appointment, a little bit out of the 6-month window. As long as you make the appointment, it'll be waived. Now, if the dog wasn't registered and it was involved in a bite situation, those fines would reach closer up to $600 each incident. For the plan to be successful, city, county, and state administrators would have to be heavily involved and communicate with the local animal shelters to help coordinate how this database would be put together, how the local shelters will be able to teach the public, and as well as determining what kind of punishments would be, not really punishments, but consequences will be appropriate for owners. Now, for the animal shelters to teach, I feel like it is important for them to choose specific dogs that they know are comfortable with people and teach them with, open shelter days. Might be every Saturday, might be every Friday, but they'll bring the public and they would teach them about a dog, let them interact with the dog, and hopefully what the public will take away is that that breed of dog isn't, too bad. Now, we are at the Q&A session. So, please feel free to ask whichever question you would like.
Is the United States the only country that deals with these types of laws?
No. So countries like France, Germany, and the UK, they all have, breed-specific laws. Some are towards pit bulls, some are towards German shepherds, but overall, it just depends on the country. Go ahead.
Can a dog's home environment affect their behavior?
Definitely, and a lot of times when the dogs are in a not so good environment, similarly to humans when we grow up, they, have a higher level of aggressiveness. And a lot of that sometimes plays into their breed as well. So if it's an aggressive breed grown in an aggressive environment, then that just, increases the risk. Go ahead.
Can these breeds be used for some service work?
Yes, they can. A lot of times these breeds are used for military work, police work, and more organizations are starting to accept these breeds as service animals as well. Alrighty. Now, today I brought to you what breed-specific legislation is and why it's not as effective as it may sound. Now, how can you help, you may ask? Well, one thing you can do is educate yourself about dog breeds, such as German Shepherds, Akitas, the Chow Chow, and, learn their temperaments and, how can you raise awareness as well. Now, a lot of times, that could include volunteering at your local animal shelter, as well as looking into your state legislation and finding out what kind of breed restrictions they have in the first place. Now, if you're in that same situation that I had you imagine at the beginning of this speech, knowing what you know now, what would you do? Would you try to raise awareness with bringing your own pup to, show the public, hey, these dogs are not too bad? Or would you kind of imagine yourself in a situation to where you don't have much of a choice? So, something to think on.